Hi everyone, Bothany Gaetano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Yard Act record, The Overload. This is the debut full-length LP of Leeds rock outfit Yard Act, a post-punk band that has been just speed-running singles throughout much of 2020 and 2021. Like this! What are you talking about?
'Cause I'm single.
So a lot of these tracks landed on their 2021 EP that dropped at the start of that year. Many more of the songs landed on this record, with some additional cuts to fill out an 11-track, 37-minute experience, giving us a pretty tight and straightforward first impression of the band. Track to track on this thing, we are getting a lot of driving and slightly danceable grooves, played out by thin bass lines, kind of rickety guitars, which are topped with endless strings of spoken word vocals from frontman James Smith. For this genre of music, that's pretty much a winning formula based on what's already worked for classic acts such as Wire or The Fall, who I think Yard Act have quite a bit in common with, but obviously take a more measured approach, which is maybe driven by far less days spent drinking and far more days spent at the library. Also, think Sleaford Mods, but with a full backing band and way less pent-up working class rage. Some of the best moments on this LP see the band pairing very simple, sweet, straightforward hooks and melodies with irresistible drum beats and a total onslaught of social commentary absurdities. The Overload, for example, which is a fantastic intro track for this record and sees the band pretty much broadcast their MO, not just aesthetically, but lyrically too. The overload of discontent, the constant burden of making sense, it won't relent, it won't repent, how to remain in dissonance. Yeah, that's pretty much what the tense fusion of bass, drums, and spoken word vocals on this record feels like. Trying to navigate a senseless world while also making something that reflects it and working as hard as you can to make as little sense as possible, be as vigorously disjointed as possible. The first verse on this track showcasing a very hopeless and bleak portrayal of modern youth culture. Meanwhile, the second is some really hilarious commentary on a band being told to behave, and it's kind of explained all the ways they need to bend over backwards in order to get popular and get a gig. Later in the record, Land of the Blind has these really slow, punchy beats, solid picked bass line, and these kind of lazy vocal harmonies that sound like something from a Gorillaz record like the first one. This serves as a very solid chorus, while eerie guitar embellishments and some bleak social commentary rings through on the verses. And mind you, James Smith isn't just rambling on this track, and many others too. There's some great rhyme schemes in the second half of this cut, for example. The track Pour Another has a very peppy keyboard-backed hook, maybe the most blissful and genuinely feel-good moment on the entire LP. There's almost a new wave groove to it too, which tracks with the song's lyrics about coming together and putting judgment aside. I think the closing track on this LP is a strong note to end on too. I have to give it to the inspiring lyrics on this cut about finding meaning in a chaotic existence. The whole thing sounds like a heavenly decree coming down from a post-punk angel. Now, there are plenty of other tracks on this LP where I find them to have a very smart, on point, witty, grim, even profound commentary, but those words aren't really cut with enough strong songwriting or melody or variation. Dead Horse, for example, does have me on the edge of my seat listening to all of this commentary about the UK's culture dying on the vine, people falling for xenophobic lies, or the collective consciousness being poisoned by fake news, audiences being unwilling to try anything new, with a shot at Sham 69 in the lyrics, mind you. The oi scene is shook. Mind you, this point is being made on a relatively regressive post-punk album, aesthetically anyway. But the group chanted chorus on this one is just a mess and really meager, feels very thrown together. Meanwhile, it doesn't really bookend the verses all that well, so, you know, James Smith's lyrics come off kind of like a difficult swamp to wade through. With the song Payday, the hand drums and grinding bass, and also the somewhat callous and irreverent commentary on poverty, comes off just a wee bit obnoxious. While I know these elements especially the spoken word vocals, are, you know, kind of key characteristics of this strain of post-punk. This track to me feels like just too much of a good thing, maybe, which is even more so the case for the following track, Rich. The groove and pacing of this one are kind of tedious, but I do like the points that are being made in regards to wealth accumulation and greed. Yeah, it's a point. The issue is that point is just beaten into the ground like a pile of dead horses being whacked with the Eiffel Tower. Quarantine the Sticks has some tense passages that I like a lot. The song serves as a smart statement on drawing lines and the ever-changing sands of time, the inevitability of change, but it still doesn't excuse the vocal layering and singing on this track being so subpar, even for a record with punk in its DNA. Tall Poppies is a pretty interesting cut that I enjoy slightly more in concept than in practice. It has a few moments that lull, but I do like the very thorough storyline being presented on this track about an average guy from a small village, a footballer with a dedicated practice schedule, eventually gets a job selling houses, settles down, really telling the guy's whole life story. It eventually like breaks quickly into a finishing scene where he's like, you know, having a heart attack, and there's some final commentary on his existence and life and how he's a person, you're a person, we're all just people. There's even a sudden PSA passage about, you know, book an appointment, get checked out, book an appointment. There is an odd shift into an apology about Western imperialism that feels kind of out of place in this story, and also maybe just like, you know, a little too flippantly thrown out there, but it's still a relative highlight on the LP that shows the band is like, you know, attempting something, showing some kind of ambition. And that's kind of what this LP boils down to for me. There's a lot of potential there. The band is showcasing some great tracks here and there in the track list, but there are some spots where something feels missing, or maybe they're just a little too over the top, or the commentary being handed down in the lyrics could use some focus and sharpening. So while I don't love this thing, I do think this is an impressive start for Yard Act, certainly. I'm feeling a strong 6 to a light 7 on this one. Transition, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video that you can check out. Hit that up, or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Yard Act, forever.